Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 13 of the Boot Report. My name is Noah Cavanaugh, and in today's episode, we are going to be going over a fantastic comparison between my favorite boot of all time, Hypervenom 3, and the new Hypervenom 1 Regen remake. We are also going to be doing some details about the massive giveaway in next episode, scalper and bot talk from the Hypervenom 1 craze, and of course, your questions. So let's jump straight into it with section 1, the weekly news. Now, thank you all for being here. We recently hit 50,000 subscribers on the channel. It has been awesome, just over 5 years doing this now, and I could not imagine how sick this would be now that we've been in it for 5 years. So 50,000 subscribers, thank you. We're on our way to 100. That's the next one. And next episode and next week will be basically a Q&A. So it actually worked out really well. Hit 50,000 subscribers at the same time that I am coming up to a Ironman race. So as of the filming of this video, it will be in about 7 days time, next weekend, the 15th. You guys can track me. It's Ironman Cans, which is spelled CAIRNS if you want, on the Ironman app. And you can track me on the race course. It's super, super cool, very intuitive, but I will be doing that. And so because I'll be gone basically all of next week, the 50,000 subscriber giveaway, episode 14, will be the giveaway details as well as all of your questions that I put up on Instagram a couple days ago. So I'll put out another story this next week, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you go and submit your questions for that episode. Giveaway is going to be 3 different pairs of boots and a top-end football, or maybe a couple mid-tier footballs, and I believe a kit. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to do like 5 winners. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and I am so stoked for it. So I'll put all the details in next week's episode, but that is the 50,000 subscriber giveaway in next week's episode. The other one I wanted to mention, I got a question on my Instagram recently about, hey, where did all the boots go that you were selling? They are all on my website now. So instead of doing stuff through Instagram, I'm just going to make it really easy. Shipping is included in the cost from Australia, which is usually about $40. So $40 to $50, depending on where I'm shipping it to. We've had some recent purchases as well. So a couple boots have been purchased from the website. You can just go to noahcavanaugh.com/shop for those. Now, in terms of footballing news, PSG are Champions League winners. Congratulations. Clap your hands, everybody. No, in all fairness, that game was absolutely ridiculous. PSG deserved to be champions. A 5-0 Champions League victory is absolutely insane. So hats off to them. There are some players on that PSG side that are very fun to watch. Obviously, Doué is one of the most exciting young talents, along with Lamine Yamal and a couple other players. He is a player I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to because he very much is a bit of Neymar reborn, if I'm honest, in terms of skill level and in terms of kind of the way that he moves with the ball. I would argue Yamal is as well, but Doué just has that kind of swag about him, which is really cool. So fantastic work to PSG. First Champions League final win ever, which is really cool. The one thing that I do want to comment on here, and this is more from a footballing side and sort of a managerial side, is I think a lot of people realized this, but maybe it wasn't put into words. And it's funny that they used to have, I mentioned this in several podcasts ago, but they used to have Neymar, they had Messi, they had Ibrahimovic, they had all these insane, not obviously at the same time, but they had these amazing players, Mbappe, all these insane players, and they couldn't win the Champions League. But then you have a player like Ousmane Dembele, who's obviously played at the highest level for a really, really long time now, and a player that talented who's basically going to be in the front 3. He'll be in the top 3 of the Ballon d'Or this year. And him in an interview being asked about the Ballon d'Or, and all he says is, sorry, us players at PSG have bigger things to worry about because we're a team and it's not about individual accolades. And I think that is fantastic. And if anything, that's what shows you, as much as I love Neymar, as much as I love his association with the Hypervenom and all that stuff, he goes to PSG because he wants to be outside of Messi's shadow, because he wants to be the guy. And then they also have all these stars. And then you have a guy like Dembele, who's debatably going to win a Ballon d'Or before Neymar. Crazy. Never thought I'd say that. saying things like Messi always did, which was very much thank you to the team comes first, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of interesting when you have a team like that who is so together and so dedicated to the process and to their own identity, which is really cool. The other one that I wanted to mention in weekly news is the TST, the soccer tournament has kicked off. I know nothing about TST, if I'm honest. I know that a lot of random influencer, like footballing influencers, are a part of that. Watching the games, they're all right. Like, I guess they're fun to watch. It would be cool to participate, I'm sure. It'd be really cool, especially when those nighttime games when so many people are watching. And for a lot of those guys, because they're influencers and they never made it to a professional level or even a semi-pro level for some of them, to be able to play in front of that many people is really cool. It's just a really great experience, period. But especially in that context on like a small-sided style of game is pretty sick. So I don't know anything about TST other than I know people who are going to TST. I have several friends who are there. And yeah, it's cool. It's an interesting tournament. It's an interesting setup. It's definitely more viral, if you will, like moments in that game because it's so small and so compact and there's so much action. It's very easy to get a lot of social media clips, which is obviously part of the way that tournament's set up because they've just invited a bunch of influencer people who some of whom are actually ballers, surprisingly, and others are like not good at soccer, which is funny to me. So anyway, TST has kicked off. Now let's talk latest colorway drops. So we got the 40th anniversary Mizuno boots, which I've got a pair down here. So let me grab those. So these are the 40th anniversary, which we'll go over in just a minute in the new in the shop section. But this is the colorway for that 40th anniversary. I'll open this box up, but these are the Morelia 2s. You get a special edition 40th anniversary Morelia box, which is really dope. But these are amazing. Yes, this specific silo, Morelia Neo 4, the non-beta edition, is amazing as a football boot, but also just this color, in my opinion, they knocked it out of the park. And not too long ago, they actually did another red colorway, but for whatever reason, this beautiful, almost jewel-like ruby red colorway just hits for me. I think it's so simple, red, black, and white, but man, this looks good on feet. And I think, I'm so interested, in my opinion, to why a Nike or an Adidas or a Puma, even if Nike came out with a pack like this and just did a solid base color, maybe some extra pattern, like the Alpha 2 has that sort of interesting geometric pattern on it with different shades of the red because it's their speed boot. It's a little more flashy. But then the beta, the non-beta, the Morelia 2, and the Monorcita are all this color. It hits every time, man. It's not colorways aren't rocket science. I think they're amazing. So we got those ones, which we'll go over the Morelia 2 in just a second. The Nike Phantom 6 released, which is, by the way, the dumbest name I have heard in a really long time. They were originally going to call it Phantom 360, I think, and then they went to Phantom 6 because of some really stupid reasoning around that was the 6th Phantom that they've created, which is a total bullshit lie because anyway, go to Unisport video. The Unisport video, J Mike's video on this was hilarious because he went through this whole thing of like, this is why they called it the 6. It's because these boots don't count and this one was 1 boot instead of 2 boot. Anyway, it was a whole thing. Phantom 6, whatever they want, why ever. It's making me not be able to speak English because it doesn't make any sense. The boots look okay, I guess. It's an okay launch colorway. It's not the best in the world, but they are kind of cool. I really like the fact that they made the high top and the low top different colors, which is kind of cool. And then they've already sort of released the AG models as well, which is super dope. So who knows? It's very, very similar, just as I said with leak releases in the past. It looks very similar to GX1, and it seems to be sort of this amalgamation of both. I will have them in the shop in the next probably week or two. I would imagine before the actual launch of the boots. it is cool and is interesting. I know a lot of people aren't very excited about the fact that they've released the boots, but you can't buy them for a week or so, or even longer than that. People are frustrated by that. I don't know why, because if you look at how Apple does it, if you look at how Nintendo does it, if you look at how all these other massive worldwide brands do it, they always have the grand reveal, build, and then you have a launch day and you've got lines out the door, and it works like clockwork. That's literally just a supply, demand, and marketing thing. And so it makes sense to me, I guess, and hopefully that comes across to you guys as well. That's the reason they do it. You see it with so many other sectors, not just boots or shoes or things like that. Then we also got the Messi F50, which basically has a couple random changes and a different paint job. It's a boot that I might get in because they've made some subtle changes to the shape. I've had them in hand already, and they look pretty cool. I do think that it's a much more retro, like this is the original one, right? So I do think they look a lot more retro than these ones do. These ones feel kind of modern, if I'm honest, especially colorways like this one and the Bad Bunny colorway. But the new one looks very, very fun and very throwbacky. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the new paint job, but I also can appreciate that if you were somebody who grew up in the F50.9 era, F50.6 era, blah, 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 all the Tune-It boots, it looks very similar to that, which is really cool. So that one I hope to get in at some point. I will probably do a video on one just because it's updated more. It's not just a new colorway. It's actually a new boot. Like they've made changes to the shape and stuff. So that's really cool. All right. Next section, new in the shop. Very exciting. I've got two boots to show you guys, and we're going to do a cheeky little super quick unboxing for you guys, although you'll have to wait to see the full. So there's that 40th Morelia made in Japan. Very, very cool box. And then I won't spoil the unboxing. I'll just take them out really quick so you can see. These, of course, are the Morelia 2, which is just a absolutely sensational pair of football boots. They look amazing. I'm so excited about these. They're really, really incredible. The color is amazing. The leather is obviously insane. They've made probably the most important change out of anything they could have done to this is they put the heel suede liner from the Neo 4 Beta series and the DNA series. It's the same shape as the normal Morelia 2, or the non-updated version, right? The previous model, even though it's called the same thing. But they've put suede in the heel, and this is what I've been waiting for, because the Morelia 2 was near perfect outside of, in my opinion, the three main issues, it's still a GOAT, don't worry, was an extra lace loop here for runner's knot, which they haven't done, which is unfortunate, but I have a hole punch tool, which I'll link down in the description box below, just on Amazon. So I'll put that link down there. And then you have the suede heel liner, which previously was this kind of slippery faux leather. It wasn't an issue for me ever. However, I know a lot of people, if you don't fit perfectly in here, it can get a little slippery. And then the other one that they obviously haven't fixed because it's a more traditional model is I wish the studs were just a little bit smaller in terms of the circumference. I wish they were more close to the Neo 4 series. So that is Morelia 2. With some updates. And then I also got a pair of Umbro boots. So Umbro sent me out these boots, which are the Tocco 5. So I will be doing a review. I did the Tocco 4 Pro, and there was they were actually not bad. The leather on the forefoot of those ones was really, really good in my opinion. It was very premium. It's the same sole plate, but it's a totally new construction of the upper, of course, with the knit. These are not a new pair of football boots. They've been around for a while, so you'll have to excuse me while I give these an appropriate rating for the time. Visually speaking, they're okay looking. Maybe it's just the colorway, but I don't know if I'm a huge fan of these. But we'll see. Maybe they'll totally blow my socks off, and that will be a news story for later down the road. So let me put these boots away. And then that is new in the shop. Don't have anything else coming quite yet. Everything else is things that I can't show you. So they're prototypes. For those of you who don't know, that is a big part of my business. I do prototype testing and consulting for the development teams at the major brands. So some prototypes that I can't show you, unfortunately. So those are coming soon. Next, we move to section 2, boot talk. Now, we have the most epic comparison this week. The Hypervenom Phantom 1 Regen, which we have here, and my favorite boot of all time, the Hypervenom Phantom 3. Now, both of these models are absolutely fantastic. If you can buy both of these, I would highly recommend it. We'll get into this one a little bit later in terms of pricing and all that stuff. And now that they've hit the resale market, how's the market reacting? We'll talk about that in a minute, but let's talk the boot comparison. So this boot comparison, we're going to go over sole plate, upper, heel, comfort, performance, design, lace area, and X factor. Let's start off with an easy category, the sole plate. For those of you who don't know, the Hypervenom Phantom 3 rocks the hyper reactive sole plate, which when it came out was not necessarily groundbreaking, but all of the studs on the lateral and medial side happen to be different. So you've got the lateral side, which is all chevron studs, and then you've got these hexagonal, which basically operate as conical studs on the medial side. There's a great amount of structure through the midfoot, fantastic snap through the forefoot area, and this is a boot that, or this is a sole plate, excuse me, that is just epic. It is one of the most well-rounded, responsive, and grounded plates on the market, bar none. It was at the time, and I would say that this sole plate, example A of why they used it, is one of those sole plates that if you put it in today's market, it would absolutely, like if this sole plate was on the GX2, I think people would be telling like GX2 would go down as a way better boot than it's going to, given the Cyclone 360 sole plate that they reused from one of the worst football boots Nike has ever created in the Luna 1. And if you guys didn't know, and you've been living under a rock, which I super respect because this social media thing can get a little bit crazy sometimes, the Hypervenom 1 remake has the same sole plate. So it's a tie for the sole plate. Now we move on to the upper. Now this could get really controversial really fast. For those of you who, well, I mentioned it already. So this is my favorite boot of all time for many, many reasons. Number one, out of all those things, out of all those reasons, is the fact that they fit perfectly straight out of the box. Zero break-in time. This upper is amazing. It's all Flyknit. It's one of the first times they did, well, actually, that's not true. It's 3 years post, 2 years post, 3 years post, the first all knit boot. But this was an execution of knit that had these pods in it. And it just, this I feel like was peak full knit football boot. It just, they fit so incredibly well. And this upper really did do a good job of molding to pretty much anybody who tried it on. And then you've got Nike Skin, which is a sort of a precursor to knit boots. And it's a triple layer upper. You have on the very outside, you've got a polyurethane coating, which is the sticky, waxy sensation. You've got a mesh, essentially very, very thin mesh that sits in the middle. And then on the inside, closest to your foot, is a suede liner. Now, the suede liner on this one happens to be slightly more robust than the original version, which makes this upper, in my opinion, near perfect. Now, I would argue that out-of-the-box comfort, which we'll go into in a little bit, this one is pretty incredible. However, I'm going to give the upper to the Nike Skin. I just think that Nike Skin was only used once. Okay, 2 times with the 2.5 update, but like whatever. Nike Skin is more unique and it feels so much different than anything else in comparison to the Hypervenom 3, which you could argue sort of feels like a Magista, sort of feels like a GX2. Like there's a lot of other boots in the Nike range that have felt similar to the Hypervenom 3, which is both good and bad. It's just not as unique. So the upper goes to the Hypervenom 1. The heel area on these boots is damn near identical. They are, other than a slight difference in shape, both from the top down that direction, but also from that direction. They are basically the same. So I'm actually going to give that one a tie. There is a slight bit of micro texturing on the Hypervenom 1 remake here in the heel that doesn't exist on this version, which is more similar to the original version of the Hypervenom 1. but it is basically the same. I just had these both on feet to make sure I was making the right call on this, and they are essentially identical. They feel the same. Next, we move on to comfort, and this is where I think most people would argue, and I will for this sake, the Hypervenom 3 is the more comfortable football boot. I think the shape of the Hypervenom 1 definitely gets better as you wear them, and then they end up feeling like a second skin. But I would argue that the general comfort of this knit is just exceptional. And to be fair, I think that most knit boots, so long as they fit the general shape of your foot, I would argue that they are probably the most comfortable boots on the market, aside from maybe a full K-leather football boot, right? Because that's just the plush pillowness comfort of a K-leather football boot. But generally speaking, knit boots, the reason they're so popular is because they're just comfortable, because they mold to every little nook and cranny of your foot, just like a sock would. And that's the whole concept behind them. So comfort is going to go to the Hypervenom Phantom 3. Now, in terms of performance, this would be a much different conversation, and it would be a absolute landslide, in my opinion, if this was the original Hypervenom 1, meaning I would pick the Hypervenom 3 performance-wise any day over Hypervenom 1 in terms of the original. But because this has the new sole plate, tiny, slightly altered shape because of that sole plate, and because this new upper is, again, tiny change that made it a little bit more responsive, a little bit more robust, this conversation becomes a little more difficult. I'm still going to argue and give the winner for performance to the Hypervenom 3. You have flywire cables, which keep you super locked in when you tie the laces tight. You have the knit upper, which wraps your foot immediately straight out of the box, and then the same sole plate and same heel area that are on the Hypervenom 1 remake. Now, the Hypervenom 1 remake is a fabulous pair of football boots. That being said, the one thing, if you're going to keep this a stock football boot, i.e. you're not going to do any sort of modifications to it, the one thing that really is a big drawback for this boot, other than the fact that there's no internal cage structure around the midfoot, extra, like this one has flywire, the extra little bit of lace loops don't occur on this boot. If you look here, look how much higher this lace hole goes. This one kind of goes on the tail end of this little kind of part that hits right at the bottom of your ankle. And if they had gone one more, which I will probably do myself, put one more hole in that area here, you would have made a much more locked in boot. But if you can see from the top down perspective, these boots on the Hypervenom 3 side have a much more open, and the lacing area has a much better ability to lock the boot in. A lot of that comes down to the flywire cables. So in terms of performance, the Hypervenom 3 wins. Now for design. This pains me to say it because the Hypervenom 3 is such a beautiful pair of football boots, but I don't think you can argue with how iconic this original Hypervenom 1 is. It is timeless. It is iconic. Clearly, 12 years later, you get a remake that they've done an incredible job with in terms of it looks exactly and is exactly the same as the original. And the hype around this is more than I've seen in a very, very long time for a boot launch. So this has to be the winner. I just think the design looks insane, and it reminds everybody of the 2013 launch. Now, in terms of lace area, this will be really quick. I just mentioned it here. The lace area goes to the Hypervenom Phantom 3. It's just a lot better, in my opinion, even though they're completely different, right? So Hypervenom 1 has the open lace, standard U-throat tongue. This one has a knit kind of enclosed monosock construction. The lace area here, especially because it's attached to the flywire cables, is just a lot more robust, and it's a lot better in terms of actually doing its job. Then in terms of X Factor, again, this goes back to the upper conversation. The upper, because the sole plates are the exact same, the heels areas are the exact same, then it really comes down to, okay, is the lace area special for some reason? It's really going to come down to the fit and the performance and the upper, really. And I think the X Factor has to go to Hypervenom 1 remake just because that Nike skin is something so much more special. compared to the knit upper of the Hypervenom 3, despite me absolutely I mean, as I said, it's my favorite boot of all time. So if it's not super special though, it can't really get that X factor win. So in terms of Hypervenom 3 versus Hypervenom 1, if you've been keeping score, let's see if you know what's going on. So for the Hypervenom 1, we have upper, design, and X factor. And then we have 2 ties in heel and sole plate. So we can kind of add those both to both scores or take them away. And then for Hypervenom 3, we have comfort, we have performance, and we have lace area. That's a 3-3 tie, believe it or not. That either says something amazing about these. Well, I think it says 2 things. One, Hypervenom 1 Remake is actually fabulous. And number 2, it means that boot then, in terms of including special editions in my top 10 boots of all time, might have to be up there. Might have to be up there because it's pretty special. All right, let's move on to hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday. The winner this week was a pretty obvious one as soon as it popped up. On Wednesday, your time, wherever it is, you have to post a photo. Well, you don't have to do anything, but if you want to enter, you basically just post a photo of you in the shoes or just like that with your feet in the boots and on a pitch, in a locker room, in your bedroom, doesn't matter. And use the hashtag Wear Your Boots Wednesday and then just tag me in that story. I will repost you. As soon as I've reposted you, you know I've seen it. And then you have a chance to win the Wear Your Boot Wednesday winner. I will probably start attaching a grip sock giveaway to this maybe every week, or some kind of cool giveaway where like the coolest Wear Your Boots Wednesday winner gets a pair of grip socks or something. I don't know. We'll do something like that in the future. At LFCFan716 put up a custom painted pair of Morelia Neo 4 Beta made in Japan's. Now, I had a short conversation with this gentleman on Instagram, and so LFC fans, Liverpool, by the way, Liverpool fans' son plays for a D3 college called Pitt Bradford in Pennsylvania in America. And these boots, which you'll see photos up on screen, are painted with the logo of Pitt Bradford. And I think they are super, super cool. Custom painted boots are super hard to do and especially do well. And these were done by Off Track Customs. So if you guys are interested, I guess you can go and check him out. I think he's in the Pennsylvania area, or maybe he's in the Northeast somewhere of the US, but those are super, super cool. So thank you to all you guys who submitted. There were some really cool boots this week. All right, moving on to performance breakdowns. So without further ado, the 1 month review videos are coming back. I know it's been a while. I've been crazy busy with training for the Ironman races and honestly kind of figuring out what I want to do with my athletic life, with the channel stuff, which I obviously absolutely love, creating better content for you. And how I do that is really dictated by the schedule that I decide to set for myself. Working for myself means I have probably busier hours than most people watching this content. A lot of people will work a 9 to 5. I work like a 5 to 9 usually. Like I'm usually working about 12 to 13 hours a day, which is amazing. Like that's not a complaint because I love it and I'm so obsessed with it. But with some of the training that I was doing, let me walk you through the inside of what my brain did when I retired from professional soccer. Pro football, in order for me to maintain the level that I did at a professional level, which granted was nothing remarkable. It was the lowest level of American professional soccer, and it's an amazing achievement, and I loved every minute of it. And it was also, I was the type of player who had to put every little bit of energy into doing that. And so anytime that I wasn't doing the pro football thing, I was working on my channel, on my personal brand, and all that stuff. For me, it was very easy to make those, hey, sorry guys, not coming out with you guys tonight because I got to train in the morning, or I'm not going to go to fly all the way across the world to, as brutal as it sounds, a funeral or a wedding because I have a game in a little bit, right? Like I was making those excuses, and I would obviously not go out to the field some days to do my 1 month review testing or whatever because I had a game on the weekend or whatever it was, right? Football took first priority. When I transitioned into triathlon, there was a period of time where you guys saw the 1 month reviews kind of fall off a little bit. And not in a bad way. I just didn't have the capacity for them because my brain went, oh, your next athletic activity is also your first priority, which is not the case anymore because I don't get paid to do triathlon. Triathlon is what I love to do, and it's what I choose to do. So because I'm not getting paid, it took me almost a year of sort of wrestling in my brain with like, you don't have to sacrifice the thing that you love, all of this, to go and do this athletic activity that you're also supposed to love. And so in my brain, it was like I was falling out of love with triathlon a little bit because I felt sort of every time I would go and train, it was like, fuck, man, I really want to just be training out at the pitch doing soccer stuff and testing boots and like telling people about it and doing my channel stuff. And now I feel like I'm at a very good place in terms of separating the athletic activity I do with that is your first priority. Like I'm going to skip a triathlon session every once in a while because I want to, right? Or I want to go out to the pitch for 4 hours. So I'm not going to do the run that day because I've just done 10 kilometers out at the field testing football boots, right? Anyway, that may be boring for you, but for those of you who are sort of in moments of transition, it can be really difficult. And even for somebody like myself who's gone through and still works with my sports psychologist, it can be really tough to sort of separate yourself from the athletic activity that you're doing and sort of transition out of that. So that's just a moment of, I don't want to be woo-woo-y, but like opening my mind and my heart to you guys in terms of that's the kind of stuff that I was just thinking through and trying to wrestle with. And I am bringing back the 1 month reviews because I really enjoy doing it. And I really enjoy taking a boot like this and beating the crap out of it and really sharing with you the experience of how it is playing. And I think it's the type of video that provided so much value to my viewers. So that is coming back. If you're interested in more updates, go over to my Instagram, follow my Instagram, because I'm going to be posting, obviously, the initial playtest. These are the Morelia Neo 4, my usual performative thing that's really fun to watch and whatever. And then I'm going to be doing an update, and then I will probably actually do a 1 month review short and post it on Instagram and on YouTube along with the full length video. So that's, just so you know, that's kind of what's going on. Now, in terms of your input on the 1 month reviews, I'm going to get 4 pairs of boots off the ground in just a second, because every week on the YouTube community tab on my channel, every Monday, you can vote about what boot is coming next for 1 month reviews. Because instead of me going out and testing 700 pairs of boots, which by the way would be completely unfeasible given the amount of training that I'm doing and physical activity with triathlon, I'm going to make it easy for you guys to get what you want. And so I put up a poll with 4 pairs of football boots that I have been working on and testing for a while now. The DS Lite X-Fly Pro 3, the Copa Icon 2, the Predator 25. This happens to be the FT, but you can exchange this for the normal laced version because they're the same. And the Sokito Scudetta. This one happens to be in the black with the replacement laces that I got in blue. So these 4 boots are boots that I've been testing a bunch. I've had, obviously, the laced version of these and the tongue version of those. I've tested this one, not this exact pair, but I tested the white original OG release colorway a ton. So even though these are a little bit newer, so to speak, I know I can basically give you the 1 month review scores on these already, even though I'm going to try and break these in a little bit more. These ones, working through. And these ones I have 2 different pairs of. I've got where are they? The gold ones. Did I put them somewhere in the boot wall? Oh yeah, they're under here. You can't see them on the, maybe you can. They're right underneath these New Balance Tequailas. And those are the gold and white MG model. I'm choosing to do this one just because the AG-FG model is more widely available and you can get it kind of anywhere. And the MG model was only a Soccer Shop Camo edition, made in Japan, et cetera, et cetera. So far, the Predator Elite is the one that we are going to be doing first. So this one has been remarkable in terms of durability. They fit me perfectly now. I will give you all the extra details. I've been playing in these a lot because I love the Predator. I think it's such a good football boot. And so that's number 1 on the list right now. DS Lite X Fly Pro 3 is number 2. Scudetta is number 3. Icon is number 4. As soon as I review the Predator Elite, I will put another boot in there and we'll do a whole nother review. So when Pred gets released, the 1-month review, it'll then be the comparison between the X Fly Pro 3, Scudetta, Icon 2, and then I'll add another boot. Maybe it's got to be something that I haven't done a 1-month review on. So underneath my desk, I've got the Uno Zero Evento, I could do Hypervenom 1 theoretically, the Maximus series from Diadora, the 2 TLSS boots, the New Balance 442 Elites, the Skechers Razor, Copa Gloro 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is really, really fun from a performance breakdown perspective. That's going to be coming to the channel very soon. Moving on to boot culture and trends. So there is a continuing hype around the crazy Hypervenom 1, which I will get back. And then I'm going to throw all these boots on the floor just so I can give you some visuals, right? Some crispy B-roll action here on the overhead camera. So the continuing hype and craze around the Hypervenom 1 resale, now that the market has sort of, people have, whether it's scalpers, whether it's bots, whether it's resellers, dealers, et cetera, people have all received their boots pretty much now. And then we saw a huge wave of the boots coming into the market. Now, I've seen boots as low as $350 US, which is about a $90 markup, from retail, or $50 markup. I can't remember how much they were. Ugh, that's not good. I think they were like just under $300. So $50 over retail, all the way up to dealers selling them for $750 US. This is what happens when the market hasn't decided. We talked about last week, a ceiling and a floor of where the boots are going to land and where the demand is. Resellers right now are sort of like, I'm just going to try and make some money. I know that they will make money, but I don't know how much they'll make because this is a new product and not something like a Hypervenom 3, for instance, that have settled at a relatively reasonable price, if that makes sense. Not reasonable necessarily because they're really expensive, but just to say that if you find a new pair of Hypervenom 3s, the delta between the really popular colorway and the not so popular colorway is actually quite small now because the market has kind of decided what those are worth brand new. So that seems to be the ceiling also. That $700-ish price point tends to be the ceiling for pretty, I would say maybe even $600. $700 is like stupid excessive. Let's say $600 because that's roughly 2x what these retailed for. Seems to be the ceiling for most football boots. So most football boots tend to be in especially the really sought after ones tend to be anywhere between $400 and $600. Anything above that, you're then jumping into the, let's say, brand new inbox, Power Swerve, David Beckham special editions, the white with the gold, like one of my favorite looking boots of all time, right? Something that rare. Or you're looking at a pair that's, I've seen Flyknit Ultras in blue or in red. The really rare colorways go for that amount of money. So it just depends. But that's what I mean is like $600 seems to be kind of the most people are willing to spend on a pair of football boots. And once you get into the $1,000 plus price point, that's when it's either a pair of used Messi boots that have been signed or player edition boots or whatever. Interesting. My hope, and this comes along with one of the questions from this week, I really hope that this reignites the football boot market in terms of tasteful upgrades and remakes. Instead of going 1-to-1 for the Hypervenom 1, they did a little bit of an upgrade to it while keeping all the best parts that people loved. I think this is a near perfect, if not perfectly executed remake in terms of the actual product itself. So Cody asks, and this is relevant to this section, so I thought I'd pull it up, which is cool. I'm going to start doing that, by the way. So if there's anybody who's asking a question that's relevant to one of the sections of the boot report, that's going to be part of that section. So Nike has been feeling a bit dull compared to other brands, says Cody. Do you think the Hypervenom regen will save, in quotes, Nike? I don't know if Nike's going to be saved by this outside of, I don't know, what if they made the new Vapor 17 and Superfly 11 out of Nike skin? Like, what if they did something like that, where they brought back one of the most iconic Nike materials ever to be created, and they made a Vapor out of this? Or they maybe did one or two other Hypervenom 1 colorways, and then they remade, what are we talking about here? A Magista Obra or a Superfly 4. Like, what if they did something like that, that was just tasteful remake, not as many regular edition releases, and then we'll bring back the Vapor and the Superfly as something that's different from the GX, as opposed to same materials, same everything, blah, 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 blah. In that case, yes. But if Nike's going to try and ride the hype of the Hypervenom 1 remake and then do nothing else and continue on with this Grip Knit Vapor and Superfly, Grip Knit, which the new Phantom 6 is, so Grip Knit Phantom 6 and Phantom 6 high top. Boring. Same old, same old. So, good question, Cody. I don't know. I'm hopeful that they can capitalize a little bit on it, but I'm also not 100% certain given their recent track record. Now let's move on to behind the scenes industry talk. This is going to be a juicy one because I had so many comments on my YouTube videos, in my Instagram DMs, text messages on my phone, phone calls, FaceTimes. No, I'm kidding. None of you have my phone number other than the people who I actually am friends with. Because here's another thing. If you have a problem with me, give me a call. Oh, that's right. You don't know me well enough to have my phone number. Therefore, you don't have enough information about who I am. I don't know why I just did that. Okay, whatever. I'm going to leave that in because I think it's funny. Behind the scenes industry talk, but I am not wrong in saying that I actually had quite a lot of messages, lots of DMs and on Instagram, lots of comments on my podcast about the Hypervenom 1s, and also lots of comments on the review of the Hypervenom 1. So last week's episode about resellers, scalpers, bots, and more, I just want to give a quick piece of context here and say I bought, for all those people saying, I didn't get them, I'm so angry at Nike and bots and whatever. I got a pair. I got another pair. Yes, this exact pair was given to me because I do work with Ultra and I get them before they're released, et cetera, which we'll get to in a minute because there were some funny comments from people who are completely uninformed. So I got another pair of this colorway for one of my close friends. She's like a sister to me, who wore them way back in the day in 2014-15. And I didn't get any special treatment. And I went on Ultra at 5 p.m. the day they launched, and at the normal time, refreshed the page at 5, saw them pop up, bought them in her size, and I got a pair. And I know several other people who did too. So that's the context, right? So they weren't impossible to get. You just had to be really quick and you had to be logged into your account and whatever else. But those are like, at least I assume, those are things that most collectors or most people who are into this hype stuff really understand, right? You want to be logged in, you want your credit card information or your debit card information or whatever, like right there, and then you go, okay? So first thing, there were a lot of emotion around pointing the finger at outside sources when people didn't get a pair, companies oversold. That's a problem, obviously. Pointing the fingers at retailers and bots and resellers and scalpers and blah, 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 blah. Finger points. First of all, one of my favorite sayings, power follows where the finger points. Take that in for a second. I'll say it again. Power follows where the finger points. If I blame somebody else for something, they have power over me. That's just my philosophy. This emotion, this hype, the anger, the sadness, the ecstatic nature of this whole thing, this emotions, is exactly what Nike wants. They don't care whether you got a pair or not. They don't. Nike doesn't give a shit because they sold all of them to bots, to resellers, to regular people like me and you. Everybody, they're gone. Nike doesn't own them anymore, right? They don't even care that I got a pair as a quote unquote public figure who reviews boots online. They don't care, like, at all. Nike didn't send me a pair of those, right? They only care about publicity. And for those of you who are talking about it online in a good way, in a bad way, in whatever your emotion is, I'm not judging you for that. I'm just saying the comments, the views, which are amazing for people like me, all of that buzz is exactly what Nike wants. Because again, they don't care if it's positive or negative. Obviously, they want people to be like, it's a cool product because that builds the hype for more people to be around it. But they only really care about publicity. Next, let's move on to the bot situation, because I actually didn't cover bots in my other video for last week's episode where I sort of ranted about this for 15 minutes. But I figured, or I thought at least, that it would be a easy follow. People would understand that I know about bots and I'm aware that they exist, et cetera, et cetera. And yet people still were like, yeah, but you didn't cover bots. Okay. Hold your freaking horses. With AI becoming a lot more prevalent and used in a lot more situations, bots and other technology-driven means of acquiring limited items, it can be like, who was talking about this? Andrew Lockhart put this in one of my, in one of the comments. There was in his hometown where he lives now in Japan, there's a store that does Pokemon cards, and apparently they've gotten so out of control in terms of pre-orders and bots grabbing them that they only sell them in person now at this particular store, and only one per customer, and it's a hand-to-hand interaction. Like, okay, cool, right? That's what I mean by limited items. So acquiring limited items. So technology is becoming more and more prevalent. And now with AI, it's going to be even easier for people to do this. It'll be easier and easier for scalpers and scammers. My point last week, and again, I'm not trying to argue or like finish the argument. I'm literally just sharing my follow-up to a lot of the conversation that has been sort of thrown in my face, which is great. I love this. My point last week was, I think, went a little bit under the radar for most people who commented about this. Solutions should be talked about, not all the anger and emotions. If we're angry about AI becoming part of it, if we're angry about technology, if we're saying it's unethical, if we're saying it's whatever, okay, cool. Let's talk about solutions. The solutions for bots, this was an awesome point by the guys on the Bootcast podcast, friends of mine, have a verification part of the process. Like the Are You Human? Pick the photos that have a bus in it or a stop sign in it. It's one extra step, and it would totally clear out bots for the most part, right? Especially with AI stuff. When you check out, Ultra uses a program called Equal, which is EQL. It's a third-party company that does a lottery system, like a random lottery. So you apply on a Friday. It does the whole cross-check thing that I was talking about, solution-oriented. And then it picks a random set of people based on stock and sizes, right? So that's because you have to put in, like I would go in and I'd be like, here's my credit card information. Here's the size that I want, apply. And then obviously if you don't get it, nothing gets kept, and they scrap your information and they delete it. And then if you get it, your card gets put through right away. And then you get the size that you had said you wanted. Hopefully that makes sense. So that is especially the case when a boot like this was launched on, let's say, a Friday, and then the next Friday is when they actually release them. So a program like Equal is really good and is a solution. So my point here is that we have to start thinking about solutions and stop bitching and moaning about the bots and the technology and how it's unethical and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. It's business, which I'll get into in a second. It's the way that times change. Okay, the next one we talked about, or the next one that I got sort of thrown at me was, hey, nostalgia is a bitch because it's caused all this craze. Yeah, that's why throwback playlists for music, boots and shoe remakes, high school and college reunions, that's why all those things exist. Humans, psychology tip for you guys. For those of you who don't know, I majored in psychology, by the way. So that's not really, doesn't really matter, but I froth this stuff. I really, really like it. Humans skew towards remembering things positively. It's called the positivity bias. This is especially relevant when that thing is tied to another good thing or memory. Football, for a lot of people, is a super positive thing in their life. It's an activity that they do to keep fit. It's a game that they love. It's a connection with their teammates or their people or their coaches. When a boot or Neymar is a player that they love and they aspire to be like and all that stuff. When a boot is associated with that thing or that player or that person or whatever, 12 years later, of course people are going to think this is the greatest thing ever since sliced bread, right? So that just totally, like, nostalgia is an inevitable part, inevitable, can't speak English today, part of this situation. So that is not an argument to be made in terms of nostalgia. Like, nostalgia isn't ruining it. Nostalgia is creating it, which is so cool. Then we have the comment about ruining, and I'm not, like, these aren't necessarily at individuals who said these things. It's sort of just, these are some interesting counterpoints that I heard, and I want to address them in the way that I feel like I can. The next one is ruining the collecting game. So ruining it for people like me and like other collectors in the world. In my opinion, and I tend to look at things maybe a little bit differently than most people in this boot world, I think that this has actually sparked more fire in the collecting game. Having so many people talk about Hypervenom 1 online in a week or 2, 3 weeks, will move more people in the direction of solutions, tactics, and methods of getting any future pairs and other sought after remakes. So it's going to be really good for this. For those who complain and moan and bitch about all this stuff that's happening and I didn't get a pair and whatever. First of all, that's how limited edition works. Not everybody gets them. That's the whole point. That's the reason why it's sought after. This may crush your enthusiasm for those types of people because, quote unquote, there's no hope, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't see it that way. You have to have a catalyst event in order to spark solution and change. If there wasn't such thing as a scammer or a scalper, then there would never be things to help the boot community grow and to move forward and to get more creative and to bring more community around it, because we wouldn't have this problem that we're facing. In my opinion, that fight towards the people who are using bots or whatever, which I don't think is a problem. I don't think the use of a bot is a problem. I think the fact that more people bitched and moaned about it then started to get more interested in solutions is the problem. Anyway, so that's that in terms of ruining the collecting game. I think it's actually going to be the best thing for the collecting game because it'll cause us to be even more solution oriented. Then we have the argument about, quote unquote, actual players not being able to buy these boots. And that's the problem, right? Nike doesn't care. Resellers don't care. And frankly, I don't really care what happens to the Hypervenom 1 remakes that get bought by people. And you might be thinking to yourself, Noah, but you always say, wear your boots, wear your boots. Yes, I am a champion, self-proclaimed champion of this idea that all boots are meant to be worn. All football boots are meant to be worn. However, if somebody buys them and decides either to put them in a glass case, wear them, or sell them to the next person for a little bit of profit or a lot of profit, that's their prerogative. I'm not going to spend my energy worrying about whatever percentage of Hypervenom 1 remakes are sitting on a shelf. I just don't care. So as much as I am a proponent, and I will do my best to tell people on my own content and in my own way, that's why Wear Your Boots Wednesday is a thing. Hey, If you have a pair of these, go out and enjoy them. If you have a pair of Superfly 3s and you actually fit in them and they don't give you huge blisters and they actually fit you, go and wear them. That's the point, right? I'm a proponent of, I'm a huge petrol head for those of you who don't know. I will never buy a vehicle and have it sit in my garage. Put it that way. Drive your cars, wear your boots, wear your shoes, wear this isn't obviously limited edition, but like if you have a really cool t-shirt that is really rare and valuable and whatever, wear it. Do something cool with it. That's what I think this is all about. So yeah, as much as actual players maybe didn't get a chance as much as they could have or should have, actually not should have, could have maybe, doesn't really matter all that much, to be honest. Then the last one that I want to riff on for a second, gear up because this is juicy. There was an individual on my comment section who you'll probably go and find that made a comment about quote unquote, that's just business, and had a problem with me saying that's just business. And this person also compared the football boot scalping situation and bot situation to slavery, price gouging, and sweatshops. I really don't want to say anything. I don't know this individual because they're sitting behind a random username. Respectfully, have some fucking perspective. Jesus, dude. I'll just leave it there. That same person, and this is so funny. I literally cackled out loud when I talked about uninformed people earlier. This is the same person who in this comment said that basically blamed me for being associated with Ultra because Ultra was charging $450 for a pair of $300 shoes. Hey, dickface, $450 in Australian money, because that's where I live and that's where Ultra is equal to $300 USD. Absolute fuckwit. What? It's a retailer. What are you talking about? Anyway, they were trying to use that as an argument to basically be like, Noah, you're biased because you also work with a major store that upmarks everything. No, honey. That's just a fucking exchange rate. That's a different currency. Jeez, man. I honestly did not think people were that thick, but okay, here we are. All right, section 3, market report. Resale market trends. The market is still absolutely buzzing about the Hypervenom 1 launch with tons of prices being thrown up, as I said earlier. And as much as dealers have knowledge about the remake and that it will make money, a lot of them don't know how much money it will make, which I think, one, if you want the boots and you're willing to pay the extra money for them, go for it, buy them. And if you want the Hypervenom prices to be lower, then don't buy them. Like, prices will decrease if less people buy them. And that's fair enough. Again, if you want to shout from the rooftops that we need to do like a social movement and bring the price drops down, totally fine. It's freedom of speech. I'm a huge fan of it. My perspective is simply that if you want them and you're willing to pay the upmarked price, go for it. And if you're not, then don't. And you're going to wait for when these boots may or may not be available in the future. That's fair enough. Like, that's totally your choice. The continuing outpouring, though, in terms of resale market trends of the Phantom generations coming into the resale market, like I said several weeks ago, hey, as soon as Hypervenom 1 releases, this is going to be an amazing situation where we'll get this outpouring of all the different Phantoms, Hypervenom 3, Hypervenom 2, Phantom Venom, Phantom Vision, blah, 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 will all come onto the market at once to ride the hype wave of the Hypervenom 1. If you want the absolute best prices, and this is market researched and understanding advice for you guys, if you want the absolute best prices on a Phantom that you really, really loved in the past, or you didn't get a chance to try and you want to buy one now, GX1 is an example, Hypervenom 3, Phantom Luna, something like that. I would wait another 3 to 4 weeks until the Hypervenom 1 hype slows down a little bit, and then we'll watch resellers start to discount the other hyper models, the other Phantom models on the market, and then you go and pounce on those. So that's what I would do if you're on the market for those, because those ones aren't going to be as hot as stuff like these. So this one will have a much longer tail of it's still going to stay pretty expensive for a while, whereas the other Phantoms that are trying to ride the hype wave of this, as people start to get their pairs and they they go through the primary market, which is through Nike and retailers, the secondary market, which is the resellers, and now they're on the tertiary market, which is in the hands of consumers and or sort of the end of where they're going to be. They're not being transacted as much anymore. You will see that hype die down a little bit for sure. And once those pairs are kind of settled into the market, then we'll see those other Phantoms that were riding that wave cool off a little bit. Some notable boots resurfacing. Now, there were some unbelievable stuff. So this is going to be amazing. At Boot Supplier AUS or at Boot Supplier Oz, put a pair of the Neymar Gold Hypervenom 1s out on the market, which I think are amazing. Rare Boots for You put a pair of Tiempo Legend 5 Elites in one of my favorite colorways. They're a purple and orange. Absolutely stunning. I actually had that same pair in soft ground. Then Rare Boots for You also put up a pair in my size. I'm tempted to actually buy these. The Predator LZ2 SLs in the white and rainbow. The Lethal Zone grip was in this rainbow colorway. They just look insane. They made a LZ2 SL in white base and in black base, and they both look amazing. At the Boot Chamber, put up a pair of Nike Tiempo R10s, which are beautiful and very, very rare and OG. And then Boot Chamber also put up one of the most rare pairs I think I've ever seen on the resale market, which never actually got into retail stores. These are a pair that never sold. There were only 30 or some odd pairs made, and they are the Adidas Predator Instinct Eyes, which are these insanely painted Predator Instinct, never sold for retail. Absolutely ridiculous pair of football boots. So rare. I'm surprised these even exist still. And then the final one is at Shop T Crampons, put a pair of one of my favorite colorways that I wore in Spain when I went over and played in there, which was the Nike Hypervenom Phantom 3 Low in that fire red colorway. They made the ice pack and the fire pack, and the fire pack one is the one that I had. So I'll see if I can find a photo of me in the boots and I'll put it up on screen. But absolutely awesome boots this week. There are some gold stuff that I looked at, that I took screenshots of, that I didn't want to put in the section because these were kind of the greatest stuff that I found this week, which is really cool. Stock availability and drops. We're well over an hour now, and I haven't even gotten to questions. So this is going to be a long podcast for you guys. Stock availability and drops. So there is definitely less availability of like regular boots happening right now because of the slowing down of releases in preparation for the summer tournaments and stuff like that. Obviously, we had the Adidas launch with the Road to Glory pack and the Mizuno pack, but I think for the most part, there's a lot of boots that are that haven't gotten colorway updates in a while, and so we aren't seeing as many. I went to Ultra the other day because I was doing some work in the coffee shop that's right next door and doing some work with Ultra, and then I also was trying to pick up a pair of boots for my wife and one of my wife's best friends, and so I had kind of the models that they wanted and the sizes that they wanted. Icon 2 was sold out completely. Gloro 2 was sold out completely. The F50s were sold out completely. And these are in sizes. I think my missus is like a 7 US in men's or 7.5 US in men's. And then one of her best friends is like a 6.5 in US. So it's not like these sizes are, hey, I need a size 13, right? Like this isn't that. So regular sizes are selling out, which is pretty cool. And that also means that we're going to see an influx of new stuff coming in hopefully soon. Obviously, Mizuno's are still around, but they wanted the Adidas stuff. So, all right, section 4, audience questions. Now, first one comes, you too can ask questions. You too can ask questions at noahcavanaugh.com/podcast. Every week, I'll put up a poll on Instagram as well, and then you can click on the link and you submit your questions through the website, and then it'll put it all together for me, and then this is what I have in front of me. So Hunter asks, how much of this price jump, or the price jump in football boots, do you think is inflation driven, margin increases for manufacturers, or modern boots using more expensive materials or tech? The reference points that he made, he wrote me like a whole paragraph basically, but the point was 2013 Hypervenoms retailed for $200 or something, just around there, maybe $220 or something like that. Now the remake is $260, $270, $280, and then the other one was the Audi Zero Leather that we just got a remake of, retailed at $200 in 2010, and the remake is $280. A huge piece of this is going to be kind of a combination of inflation and margin increases. In terms of materials, they have gone down. They're not more expensive. They're less expensive. They're going away from K leather, which is harder to get, and they're moving to cow leather or calfskin leather, which is way easier to get, and it can be treated in overseas or domestic facilities, depending on what's cheaper. They've moved away from carbon fiber in the sole plates. They've moved away from other types. I'm trying to think of, I was thinking about this the other day. What other types of materials? Carbon fiber, fiberglass was one of them that are more expensive to mold, more expensive to deal with. And if they break, you can't really repair them all that much. Like if carbon fiber cracks, it's an absolute monkey to try to get repaired. You see that with bikes and stuff. Carbon fiber repairs on a carbon frame bike are ludicrously expensive. Same for football boots. And you're not going to pay $200 for a pair of carbon plated football boots, and if they crack, you're not going to take it to a carbon repair shop because it'll cost you $300 to repair, right? So I would say the majority of it is actually margin increase coming from less expensive materials and tech. We've talked about this a lot with Nike and using the same materials for 4 out of 5 of their silos, et cetera, et cetera. So things like that. So great question, Hunter. I really like this question. And then, of course, inflation. So you have to imagine 3%-ish, 2 to 3%, 2 to 4%, I guess, inflation every single year. So you compound that over 12 years, that's a lot of inflation. For context, if you put $100 into the stock market, every 7 to 10 years, your money doubles. So roughly every 7 to 8 years, if you're good with your money. So you imagine they're actually less than inflation, technically speaking, right? So inflation would indicate that a $200 pair of football boots would be $400. Let's give it an extra couple of years and say every decade. So every decade, your money doubles or things become double as expensive. Obviously, that's not always how it works, and we're not in a vacuum, et cetera, et cetera. But that would indicate that maybe those boots should have been $400, but instead they're a little bit less, but they're able to do that because they've taken the price of materials and decreased them, because they're not using all the premium stuff that we've seen in the past with high quality knit, K leather, et cetera, et cetera. Nick asks, how do you feel about more brands moving away from K leather, specifically now that Mizuno and Asics are, since they make such good leather football boots? I'm super bummed. I don't know what else to say. I'm really bummed. I think K leather football boots are where it started and where it should continue, at least for some pockets of the market. Boots like this that have done now a hybrid. So for Mizuno, a Morelia 2 is going to probably be one of the most expensive boots to produce because it's a full K leather upper. There's a lot more K leather. So once they've produced this synthetic material, once they've done the R&D for it, it's synthetic, right? It's easier to produce and it's less expensive to produce than treating an organic material like K leather. So I'm bummed. I'm honestly really sad. And I would really hope that there are going to be a few brands. I hope Mizuno hangs on longer. I know that Asics is probably not going to have leather after 2027 or 28 or whatever it is. And that's a shame because K leather is a very special and unique sensation on feet. And it's just, Yeah, it's sad. And I think it'll come back. That's what I'm hoping. It'll come back. Once people realize that kangaroos are actually, how do we say, a pest in Australia. And that's where they come from. Pietro asks, did you see the new features, especially on the sole plate of the Mizuno Morelia 2? I'm kind of disappointed they removed the little 6 spikes. I thought they helped avoid separation between the boot and the sole plate. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'll get into this in my review, but the rivets is what he's talking about. The rivets were taken away to reduce weight. Respectfully, no one has had enough time in this new boot to evaluate whether the durability is actually worse. So I wouldn't worry about it until it actually happens. Yoshi asks, in terms of limited releases, do you feel like the Hypervenom 1 remake is a better boot than the Mizuno DNA remake? They are wildly different, so I don't really think one is better than the other. First of all, DNA isn't a remake. It's a DNA 2, and the DNA 2 isn't a remake of DNA 1. It's a slightly updated version of DNA 1, which also wasn't a remake. It's an amalgamation boot, or a... what does the car community call this? What's the word somebody in the comment section will know exactly what I'm saying. Homologation. It's a homologation, which means that you take a bunch of things from different things and put it together into one package. So do I think the Hypervenom 1 is better than the DNA? No. They're radically different feeling football boots, and they both perform really well, but they're very, very different. So they're not really comparable, if I'm honest. In terms of what I'm going to pick on a regular basis, I love the Phantom series, so I'm probably going to pick, like if I'm going to go play a game, I'm going to pick the Phantoms. If I'm going to go to a pickup match or a training session or a day that I just want to go kick a ball around, I'm going to pick the DNAs. So that's what I'm going to do. Andres asks, what happened to the used boots that you were selling? Did you sell all of them? No, they are actually all sitting, well, some of them are sitting all behind this wall side here, and they are on my website. So you guys can go and purchase a pair for yourself. If you have a problem with the price point of any of them, DM me a photo of the boot that you want and put in an offer. Don't be stupid. Don't be ridiculous. Keep in mind that prices include shipping. And I thought I've been very fair with pricing on there, but you just buy them through the website. So instead of going through the fluff of Instagram and going back and forth with randos who don't actually want to purchase anything, go to my website, noahcavanaugh.com/shop, leave the link in the description box below as well. And you guys can just go check out what I've got that I'm getting rid of. So that's easy. Makes it much, much easier for both parties. Alekis, best boots for wide and flat feet right now, around €100. Honestly, I would go Copa Gloro 2. Angel, or Angel, however you pronounce it, asks, do you have any tips or advice on how to make your boots last longer? Yes, I will also leave the link to that exact question. I made a video for the Ultra Football YouTube channel, and I will leave that link down in the description box below. I'll probably make one like that for my own channel at some point, but I put lots of energy and effort into that one. So you just go watch that one, and that'll answer your question. Andrew asks, I just sprained my arm and will be out for a few weeks. Sorry to hear that, dude. What mindset or helpful tips do you recommend during recovery before returning to the pitch? Keep your visualization going. Keep your food intake and your diet, and do everything that's in your control and continue to really hone in on that stuff. So nail your diet, do any sort of cardio that you can do without moving your arm, or whatever the doctor prescribes, like whatever thing you can do to continue your fitness. Can you juggle a ball? That doesn't include your arm. So like, are there things that you can do to keep up your skill, to keep touches on the ball, to keep that familiarity? Watch a bunch of film, analyze your games in the past, do that type of stuff, and that'll really, really help. So just keep process focused. A dip in terms of your play might be inevitable, or you might be able to totally deal with it when you spend a lot of the time more process focused and be like, hey, this is just part of my journey as a footballer, and I'm just going to roll with all the stuff that I can control. That's the way that I go about injuries. Carlos asks, what about doing reviews of old boots for nostalgia? Absolutely. Here's the only caveat to that, and the only challenge I have is trying to do, which I have done. So any boot that I like, the Tiempos I did, the Ronaldinho Tiempos I did, the Hypervenom 3s I did, these two, the Magistas and the Superflies. Those boots are really fun to do videos of. A few things though to consider. One is that I have so many normal and special edition releases coming out that it really comes down to a time thing for me, including the other stuff in my business that I have to do on a daily basis. So it's really hard to justify, number one, buying those boots, because again, a nostalgic old school pair of boots I'm not getting for free unless I'm being sponsored by a boot dealer who's like, hey, I have this pair in your size. Give me a shout out and I'll give you those pair of boots. Amazing. 100% would do a review like that. But that's all money out of my pocket for a review that may or may not like make any money, and it's fun for me. And there's a short list of boots that I am still looking for, which that video will come out soon. There's a short list of boots that I will 100% spend money on because I want them in my boot wall. But for the most part, the old school boots are a little bit more challenging in terms of making those reviews and making them financially feasible. Because again, this is a business. And so I have to make those decisions and be like, okay, if I can get, these for free and I can get these for free and I can make money on the reviews and then all that stuff, then it makes sense to maybe spend that money doing this, or do I hire somebody to help me with this other thing? Anyway, maybe I'll explain it at some point. If you're interested in like how this business actually works, I'm happy to provide that to you, or at least part of it. But yeah, so that would be interesting. And then Dewey asks, I noticed the Ruby Red Alpha 2 made in Japan is cheaper than the FG model on the US Mizuno website. Why is that? Good question. Simple answer. The AG model does not include Carvo, and the AG model for the Alpha is used on all of the Japan AG models, or most of them, in terms of the Morelia Neo 3, Morelia Neo 4, the Monarcida Neo 3, and now the Alpha, and et cetera, whereas the Alpha sole plate, that triangular stud pattern, is only used on the firm ground Alpha. So from a cost perspective, it's a lot more expensive to do the Alpha sole plate than it is to reuse a sole plate from another boot. And the Carvo midsole that exists in the FG model does not exist in the AG model. So that's where the price discrepancy happens. And what's cool about Mizuno is they don't say, hey, we're going to delete all this really cool stuff and still charge the same amount of money. They're like, no, it doesn't have this cool stuff. So we're just going to put an AG sole plate and no Carvo in it, and we're going to charge less money so people can have them. That's dope. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the longest podcast I've ever done. I'm getting hoarse. I hope you appreciated that. If you did, what emoji do I want this time? For those of you who made it to the end, I want a chef emoji because we cooked today. We cooked. It was a great episode. I really enjoyed this. So put the chef emoji, whichever one you want. Just one of the three. I think there's 3 chef emojis. So yeah, any version of the chef emoji, put that best describes you. So put a chef emoji. I appreciate you all being here. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and also go over to Instagram at noah.cavanaugh, and you can submit your questions for next week's episode just on my Instagram page instead of through their website. And then we'll hopefully get some really good ones as well for that episode, plus all the details for the 50K giveaway. Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.